What's going on, Internet? Durlroz here, coming at you with another World of Warcraft video. Today we're going to be taking a look at Feng the Accursed, the second boss in the Mogu'shan Vaults. Feng is a three-phase fight, with each phase beginning at 95, 66, and 33%. For this fight, we use 2 tanks, 3 healers, and 5 DPS. In each phase, Feng uses 3 individual abilities unique to the phase. At the start of the fight, 2 crystals will spawn for the tanks to pick up, one on the left and one on the right of the boss, closest to you. These crystals are a barrier and reversal. Use barrier to nullify harmful effects and reversal to mimic a harmful effect that strikes a friendly target. On normal difficulty, Feng has a set phase order of Fist, Spear, and Staff. During Spirit of the Fist, Feng will use Lightning Fist, which is an ability that travels in a straight line whichever way he's facing, and deals 250k damage to those that are hit. It also stuns the target if it is hit as well. The Feng will also use Lightning Lash, which is a stacking debuff on the tanks, ticking for 30k every 2 seconds. I recommend switching at 2 to 3 stacks, with 4 being the absolute max, depending on your healers of course. The final ability Feng will use during this phase is Epicenter. This ability inflicts AoE damage to the raid, and players will take more damage the closer they are to Feng. To counteract this ability, you will alternate using Barrier and Reversal. When using Barrier, have the raid stack up in the middle of the room, and the tank with Barrier will simply just use Barrier on top of the raid. Make sure to wait half a second before using the Barrier, as you want the barrier to still be up as the cast for Epicenter is finishing. To counteract this ability with using Reversal, the barrier tank needs to eat a Lightning Fist, and then the reversal tank needs to copy the stun that is on the barrier tank in order to interrupt Epicenter. Do not use the stun as Epicenter is being channeled, as you will have a 75% chance of missing. Make sure to use the stun as he is casting Epicenter. This will interrupt the entirety of the cast. During this phase, we tanked Feng on the edge of the room, keeping him at range in case there was a missed stun for Epicenter, but also keeping him at range for the Epicenters we used Barrier for. During Spirit of the Spear, Feng will use Wildfire Spark, which is a debuff placed on a random party member. This person will explode in 5 seconds, leaving a patch of fire on the ground. This player needs to run out of the raid within this 5-second period to drop the fire out of the raid. Make sure to not stand in the fire once it has been dropped, and move the boss accordingly if the fire is dropped in the raid. Feng will also use Flaming Spear, which once again is a stacking debuff on the tank, ticking for 30k every 2 seconds. Once again, I recommend to switch at 2 or 3, 4 being the maximum amount. The tank using Reversal can use Reversal on his tanking partner while he is not tanking to copy this ability and inflict damage to the boss. Feng's final ability during this phase is Draw Flame. He will channel a spell attempting to absorb all wildfire sparks placed on the ground. His melee swings will then cause 50k AoE damage, 1 pulse for every fire absorbed. You can use Barrier to nullify the absorption. Do this by using Barrier on top of the boss while he channels Draw Flame. Wait half a second before you start to use Barrier, as using it too early or too late will cause you to miss some of the flames. Make sure to use raid cooldowns when you do not have a barrier available. During this phase, we tanked Feng in the middle of the room and ran wildfires to the edges, preferably not behind the tanks or the raid, as these flames do inflict damage as they are being absorbed. I would also recommend taking a step or 2 back, as the flames do inflict damage as they are hovering under the boss. During his final phase, Spirit of the Staff, Feng will use Arcane Resonance, a debuff placed on a random party member which will inflict 10k damage to each player within 6 yards. Additional players within 6 yards amplifies the damage by 10k. This means that you will be taking exponential damage depending on how many players are standing within the 6 yards. Reversal can be used on players affected by Arcane Resonance, and I would also recommend saving it until you stack up for Arcane Velocity, as that will increase the amount of damage Feng takes from this debuff. Arcane Velocity inflicts 40k damage per second and will inflict more damage the further you are from Feng. Use Barrier whenever possible to nullify this damage, and use raid cooldowns when there is no barrier available. Feng's final ability during this phase is, you guessed it, a stacking debuff on the tanks, ticking for 30k damage every 2 seconds. Once again, I would recommend switching at 2 to 3 stacks, and 4 being the maximum. During this phase, we tanked Feng in the middle of the room as the raids spread along the edges. Run in for Arcane Velocity, unless you have Arcane Resonance. If you have Arcane Resonance, you should run closer to keep damage at a minimum, but make sure to stay at least 6 yards away, as any closer will most likely result in a raid wipe. For tanks specifically, I would try to maximize your absorption or healing, as most of the damage this boss inflicts is magical, the only physical damage coming from his melee swings. I would also recommend using cooldowns to help reduce the damage you take during the stacks of the debuffs, but also reduce the damage you take from the pulsing AoE while still tanking the boss. This is only apparent during Spear and Staff, as you will not be tanking the boss during Epicenter. If you are the tank using Reversal, try not to be too greedy with its usage during Spear the Fist, as missing a stun on an Epicenter could result in a raid wipe. However, during Spear and Staff, try to maximize its usage, as that will greatly increase your damage and possibly help result in your first kill. On the other hand, if you're the tank using Barrier, try to time your barriers to the best of your ability so that you're able to absorb the most damage possible. If you do this correctly, your healers will love you, as they have so much more mana to spend on you while you are being punched in the face by the boss. Anyways, this has been Durlroz. I hope this video helped you out, and as always, Internet, be cool and game on.